Well, the COVID-19 vaccine drive is underway with more healthcare workers to receive that jab today. Government says another batch of Johnson & Johnson vaccines will arrive in the coming weeks. The vaccine is the only one so far that requires only one shot. The others require two jabs. Well, let's discuss this further now, see how it's going with the President of the South African Medical Research Council, Professor Glenda Gray. Prof, a very good morning to you. Busy days for you indeed. No rest for the talented, I suppose, and the knowledgeable. A little less than a day since the first jab was given to the country's #1, in fact. What are you hearing? What's the feedback so far?
And I think we're very excited, and we definitely are seeing that there's a lot of demand. And so what we have to do is now fine-tune our processes to streamline and accelerate vaccine delivery. I want to see by next week, Wednesday, 40,000 doses going into healthcare workers, and then by the end of 14 days that we've used up all the 80,000 doses. So we are committed to scaling up rapidly, and we are looking at ways to unblock processes like registration and voucher systems and challenges of being online and how sometimes lack of connectivity at the site level can impede progress. But we have a team that's dedicated to scaling up this so that we can really get to every healthcare worker that needs this vaccine.
Well, I suppose I don't know if it might be too soon to tell, Prof, but have you had any news or heard of anybody having any adverse reactions so far, any of those who've been given this shot since yesterday?
So we do expect reactogenicity. That means the vaccine is working. You know, if you have a sore arm or you have a headache or a flu-like illness, it means that the vaccine is kicking in and your immune system is responding to that. So we should not be scared of reactogenicity or side effects because that tells us that the vaccine is working. And so I would expect it, and I would not, would counsel people about it. And the most important thing is to have access to Panado or paracetamol, and to make sure that if you do have these flu-like illnesses, that you take your tablet. The reactogenicity is expected, and we do expect that around 3 days the symptoms will go away. It's usually mostly on the first day, and then second and third day it's much easier. But it's a way of telling us that the vaccine is working. And we saw this in healthcare workers in the US after they got their jabs, that some of them did have flu-like illnesses and pain in the arm. So we must not be worried about the reactogenicity. It's part of the process of getting the immune system to work and make sure that the immune system is responding adequately to the jab.
Prof, what's happening in the hours, or even like you say, these the sort of reactions could happen up to 3 days after? Are these healthcare workers or those who are getting the jabs right now, are they required to sort of stay home in that time? Are they going back to work? What's sort of the safe time for them now to be out in the general public?
No, they can go back to work. They must just implement the non-pharmaceutical interventions. Remember, it takes about day 14 we start to see immunity starting to kick in. You know that the peak immunity starts from day 28. So we're more worried about them thinking that they're immediately protected straight after the jab. It takes a while for your immune system to respond. And so from day 14 we start to see nice immune responses, and day 28 we're happy with healthcare workers because we think they've got full protection at that stage. So we don't expect them to stay at home. It's like if you have a mild cold or a mild illness, you still go to work, you take your Panado, and you can go to work. So we don't need people to have to take 3 days off work to take the jab. You must just, my advice to the teams is to alternate the team so that not everyone in the same team gets the jab all at the same time. Otherwise the whole team might be feeling a little bit, out of order. And so basically I'd recommend that we do half the team and half the team so that there are people who aren't feeling as sick. I'm not saying everybody is going to get a reactor. It'll be a small group of people, but we do have to take that into account.
Well, just judging by what you say, Prof, and I just want to ask you this because it might be a concern for some people out there. If in that time some do get those flu-like symptoms, they're not feeling so lekker as well, and how would we know whether this is a result of having had the jab, or whether they might have picked up something? Maybe it might be symptoms of COVID. There might be. Is there a possibility that that they might pick up something in that time as a result of being sort of just vulnerable in this time?
So we have a safety desk. We have an 0800 number. So anyone with any queries, anyone feeling ill, can phone our number. So we have set up a safety desk to monitor the reactogenicity and side effects. And so that's a 24-hour hotline, and we have doctors who are manning it, and they can assist. So highly qualified people who were involved in the ensemble study are manning our safety desk and can assist anyone who has had the jab. We also have our research staff at the site who were involved in ensemble, and so there also can be face-to-face contact with doctors and investigators and nurses who were involved in other studies who can give advice to participants, to the healthcare workers. They can come back to the site and just chat to the team.
Well, Prof, I know you probably heard this all day yesterday as well, or since we heard that the vaccines had landed and were already being rolled out. Questions like, this seems to have been fast-tracked. We haven't seen a sort of quarantine period with this vaccine like we saw with AstraZeneca. And this is, in essence, is this our trial? And if you can explain why there was no quarantine process actually needed for this one.
Because we had the data. So you need, when you bring a vaccine in, you have what we call a certificate of analysis that shows that this vaccine is potent and gives you the shelf life or the expiry date. Now, you can do these assessments anywhere at internationally accredited laboratories. So that's the first thing. So you can do it in South Africa, or you can already have had that done at an international accredited laboratory. In the case of the J&J jabs, we already had the data because we've been working on it, on these vaccines, on the batches that are being used since October last year. And so we have the certificate of analysis that these vaccines are in use as part of the regulatory processes. And so there was no need to do an additional step and do another certificate of analysis in South Africa, where South Africa recognizes international labs who do this, and so it would have been redundant to do a repeat 14 days and waste 14 days of time. In 14 days, we could vaccinate 80,000 people.
Prof, are we the only country using the Johnson & Johnson vaccine? I thought I heard you say that healthcare workers in America have also been given this jab. Did I hear correctly?
So the healthcare workers have been given the jab in the ensemble studies, and so they have been, so I'm referring to the healthcare workers there. So we are the first country, we're the first country to use this in an interim period, in an emergency kind of early access program. So we are the first country in the world. We do expect FDA approval any day now, and the discussions we had with the Department of Health and with the regulator and the manufacturer, J&J, is in this period of time when we're waiting for the registration, what should we do? Should we just wait, or could we use this vaccine under regulatory authority and approval? And this is the course of action we chose to go. And it's like, there's a good analogy. When you get a car and you're waiting for your registration, you don't have your number plates, but you have that registration number that you put on the outside of your car window. That's exactly what we're doing. The car works and the vaccine works. We're just going through the registration process.
Just need the stamp of approval. So we're the only country, like you say, at the moment. Some concerns we're hearing coming from the Americans, though, Prof, saying that they're expecting just a few million doses, and it's a lot less of what they were promised as well. There's also concern that there might be limited doses coming to South Africa as well. And this is an American company. They are worried that they are going to be short. Are we probably going to be left behind or left on the back burner with a shortage when we expect it?
Well, I think the USA has got a lot of other choices. They've bought a lot of other doses of other vaccines, and so I guess they have a lot more options than we have. And so I think that in the global in the effort to have global solidarity, there will be countries that may run with certain vaccines as compared to others. But in a country that requires -70 refrigeration for Pfizer, it may not be fair to have that same kind of rationale. So we know that the Pfizer jabs require -70 refrigeration, and it might be fair to have those kind of jabs in South Africa, but not in the rest of Africa. And in the same way, similarly, if the US has access to good refrigeration, it's fair that they get those vaccines that have complicated cold storage, and allow other countries with more challenges to have vaccines that are much easier to use. There has to be global solidarity here. Until we're all safe, no one is safe, and so we can't start being complaining about allocation when the whole endeavour is to vaccinate the world.
But should we worry, though, Prof? Should we be worried that we might be facing a shortage or not get our deliveries on time for the next round?
Well, I do believe that this effort to vaccinate 500,000 healthcare workers with the single shot adeno 26 J&J is a good way to start. And if we can demonstrate at a global level our competency to do this, this may put us in a very good in a very good position to negotiate for more vaccines. And so I think that there are companies coming on board to manufacture it, like Aspen, and the more of these companies come on that get licensed by J&J to manufacture and produce these vials, the better. And so what we have to do is make sure that we support the supply chain and support the producing of these vaccines, and not just be recipients of the vaccines. So we have to make sure there are lots of manufacturers, lots of subcontractors who are able to make these vaccines on J&J's behalf, so that we can make sure that supply meets demand.
All right, Professor Glenda Gray, thank you so much for your time there, just giving us an idea of how it's going and the road ahead there with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Less than 24 hours since that first jab was actually given to the president. Well,